about is development. I'm not so as a learning scientist, I do not subscribe to the idea that learning is linear or happens in like what prescribed stages, but I do think looking back on Eilish's early learning, I can see specific sort of phases in her learning that I want to tell you about. So the first thing I did when Eilish came home, I gave her an outside button. That's sort of a strong recommendation, and I put it by the back door. And over time, it was clear to me that she was asking to go other places in the house, like in the garage and upstairs. So I put buttons in those locations as well. So the buttons were separate from each other in space, and it took a while for her, probably a couple of months, to start consistently using the outside button, and then even more time to use the other buttons, but less time to start using those other buttons than to start using the first one. So I would say the first sort of step in Eilish's learning and development was understanding that the outside button did something for her, and then understanding that buttons in other places could also do something for her. I did add a tile next to her outside button with a water button, and it like broke the whole thing. It stopped working. So I did the thing which they say not to do in a lot of cases, and I took that away. And then she started using the button again. So she started with an outside button, and then she got the garage button and the upstairs button. And then I experimented with a couple of different buttons, but ultimately landed on a help button. And I taught her how to use that by like sticking stuff that I knew she wanted under the couch and pushing help, and eventually she would push help. So, but it took a while there as well for her to start going over to the help button to push it for something else, even though I was modeling that consistently. But once she got that, something shifted. So it shifted from, this button gets me access to the garage, and these other buttons get me access to other places, to buttons like get me stuff. And what I saw at that point was that Eilish would push a button when she wanted something, and it did not, like, the button that she pushed did not necessarily correspond to what she wanted. So it was like pushing a button meant there's something that I want. And that was the point at which I put all of the buttons in one location, and her communication completely exploded. So it's almost like it went from this outside button, this specific button in this specific location gets me something, to buttons in different locations can get me something, to buttons get me stuff, to, oh my goodness, I have so much to say. So that was her early development.